Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode, what is it now, 14 of Montague Island Books, and welcome to the island, the imaginary island. Now, for those that don't know, the island was actually created by Mike Craven, or M.W. Craven as his pen name, and on his latest, on his last book, a curator, and it is a fictional island off the coast of Cumbria that Mike created for his absolutely brilliant book. And when I was thinking about this show as a sort of desert island-ish book for books, I asked Mike, could I use the name of the island, and he gave me the okay to do that. So that's where the name comes about. If anyone was wondering, you won't find it on a map because, as I say, it's a fictional island, and it's Cumbria, so it'll be quite cold quite a bit of the time of the year. But anyway, let's get on to our guests. So first of all, we're very privileged again tonight. Last week we had two authors on, and again we've got two authors tonight. Now our main guest was born in Sheffield, but she was a very clever lady, and she came over to Manchester and studied law, and she stayed over in Greater Manchester. Now, she was a divorce and professional indemnity lawyer, and she turned to writing when she deserted the law to break up her three lovely daughters. She's had short stories and poems published in a variety of literary publications and anthologies. She writes domestic psychological thrillers, and she goes under a number of identities. So we'll let her explain shortly about all those identities and what she uses for which. But the debut novel, Beneath the Skin, was known also as The Wife's Secret in ebook, and was published by Avon Harper Collins in October 2017. A second novel, My Husband's Lies, followed in May 2018 and became a Kindle top 10 bestseller. Betray Her was published by Plaques of Little Brown Book Group in July 2020, and Truth Games ebook followed in November 2020. And the paperback will be published on the 10th of June. And I'm sure our guest will tell us more about that later. Now, she's got a number of pen names. She's also written a legal suspense series called Convictions that's published by Bloodhound Books. And the follow-up, Confessions, was also published last year. He's written a gothic-tinged psychological thriller called House of Hidden Secrets, and that was published by Harper Books on the 14th of April, and is available in both ebook and audiobook. She has two dark, twisty, short story collections that I absolutely love the names of. The first one is Watching Horsepaths Feed the Roses. It's a great title. And the second one is Hanged by the Neck. So I'm very, very pleased to welcome, today Caroline England. Good evening, Caroline, and thank you for coming along.
Hello and good evening, and thank you for inviting me. And it's lovely to see a lot of familiar faces here tonight. So yeah, thank you for inviting me to your cold Cumbria Island. Although we're not there yet, are we?
No, we're not there. We'll pack you off there at the end of the show.
Right.
So, Caroline, would you like to, after I've given your introduction, would you like to introduce your guest?
Oh, I should have prepared this, shouldn't I? I might have to ask Rosie to do it herself.
Can't you there?
Well, Rosie she's one of these really annoying people because she's so multi-talented. She's got a career and all sorts of degrees, more than one degree anyway, and she's been a screenwriter and an author and all sorts of things. But I won't get everything right, but she's also a very good friend of mine as well. So I'll let you, Rosie, introduce all your wonderful attributes.
Oh gosh, thank you, Caroline.
No pressure.
Well, in fact, I've got a friend here who's written a book called My Illustrious Career, but I don't think that mine is that illustrious. Yeah, I've kind of tootled through a lot of different writing medium, and I think probably finally found my way home to prose. So, and after a long journey, the first novel was just published yesterday, actually. So yeah, now I've written a lot of drama and script writing and that kind of thing, yeah, and a little poetry.
Wonderful. Many strings to both of you both there. So first of all, Caroline, would you like to tell us a bit, I just rushed through there about the books, but do you want to tell us a little bit more about your books, why you chose psychological thrillers and why you've got the different pen names, and also where people can find out more about your books and your social media and things like that?
Right, okay, so the genre to begin with, psychological thrillers, I think that happened by accident. I didn't know I was writing them. I just wrote books I would like to read, and I guess I was reading contemporary fiction and crime fiction, and so I ended up doing this blend, which is what I think psychological thrillers or domestic noir are, that blend of the two things. And but when I was very fortunate to get offered a deal by Harper for Beneath the Skin, my editor at the time said, right, you better go to some crime writing festivals. And I thought, why? And she said, oh, it's the genre's crime. And then I realized I do kill people, and people die, and there's nasty crimes in there. So it's sort of, it's very logical, really. But so that's why I've sort of fallen in this domestic noir stroke psychological thriller category. And as for, so I have my main Caroline England writing name, and that's sort of it's been with, my first two were with HarperCollins, and then I'm now with Little Brown. And so they've sort of got that name, if you like. And because I had a backlog of writing, and I'm a bit obsessed, that's all I do all the time, I've got sort of more spare books, so therefore you need a pen name. So I did my legal series, which is, as you said, Convictions and Confessions. They're under the Caro Land and with Bloodhound Books. And then my latest one, C.E. Rose, the clue is the C.E., is me again. And again, that's, as you mentioned, it's another psychological thriller, but it's sort of gothic tinged. It's contemporary, but it's all set in an old house, and everyone's got secrets, and it has a slightly ghostly feel to it. It's not a ghost story as such, but so it's a little bit different. And so yeah, I'm with Hera Books for that, and that came out just a week ago. And I've been having my blog tour and enjoying everything, yeah. So that's lovely. And so, but if people want to find out more about my books, they're all on Amazon. There's my Caroline England page on Amazon, and on Twitter I'm at Kaz England. On Instagram I'm at Kaz England 1, because someone had already bagged the Kaz England. And then I'm on Facebook, and again it's at Kaz England 1, and it's Caroline England author. And I do have a website as well, which is quite easy. It's www.carolineenglandauthor.co.uk. So that's all quite straightforward. And
brilliant.
Yeah. So if you're on Instagram, if you want to see pictures of my animals, well, that's basically what you see most of the time. Books and animals, cats and books. So yeah.
Hopefully some of the animals will come along during the show and introduce themselves.
Yeah, well, Poppy's already gone off in a huff, so maybe not.
So I see you've got some books behind you, I presume they're your books. So do you want to just, without sounding rude, flash us a few covers?
Oh, right, look, my covers. Oh,
Yeah.
I know it's product placement here. First of all, behind me, I've got this lovely, I don't know if you can see it, this lovely photograph of all my books that my husband sorted for me for Christmas.
Yeah.
And he's very pleased with himself, because he did it all by himself without my three girls, telling him what to buy and everything.
Wow.
But anyway, the actual books. So sorry, I should have prepared earlier.
It's just, I know you've got some really nice book covers, so it's interesting to show them off.
Right, lovely. Oh, thank you, Joe. So we've got, this was the start. This is my debut, Beneath the Skin. And as you say, they did change the name of it to The Wife's Secret, but that's only on ebook. For the paperback, it's still the same. And then the next one that became the Kindle bestseller was My Husband's Lies. And I believe they occasionally do. Then the next one is Betray Her.
Yeah.
So yeah, that came out last year.
Great.
And then Truth Games. This is the one that came out in ebook, and you can get it in this size, but the sort of standard paperback will be out in what, sort of 2 months now, isn't it? 10th of June. Time's flying.
A couple of months. Not even that, isn't it? It's less than that. 6
Yeah,
months.
I know, it's soon coming round. The year's just flying, isn't
It
it?
is.
And then my two it's a legal drama, and they're sort of, they have all the secrets and lies and twisty turny bits, are these two, Convictions and Confessions.
Great.
And I can't show you my cover for The House of Hidden Secrets, which is the best cover. It's so nice because I don't actually have the paperback yet, but that is, you'll see if you follow me on social media, you'll see it's everywhere at the moment, and it's a gorgeous cover. Really nice.
Do you have any, you know, because you've been with 2 or 3 different publishers, but you've got great covers on all your books. Do you have any input into that, or is it just down to the publishers?
Yeah, not really. They sort of, I mean, they sort of go, here is the cover. We hope you like it. And so you can't, I've been lucky because I have liked them all. But at Hera, the book cover that's just come out, that's so lovely because it's red and it does have a gothic-y feel to it. They offered me, they sort of, there are 2 of them, Lindsay and Kashini, and they were sort of like, apparently one like one and one like the other, and they didn't tell me which one. And so of the 2, they were completely different. I chose one, and they sort of went, you know, so I hope it didn't cause problems. Which one I chose.
It's great, but yeah, the really striking book covers, so that's great. So everybody knows now where to go out and get the books. And Rosie, you just released, published, I was going to release, publish your book today. Hey!
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's kind of been a labor of love, really. I mean, I don't think I've ever spent so long working on, and it's not actually the first novel that I've written, but it's the first I've kind of like finished to the extent that I really was pleased with it and it was ready for publication. So it's it's called The Lucky Country, and the ebook went on online yesterday, and the paperback is available through all the usual suspects, Amazon, Waterstones, Barnes and Noble, etc., to order online if you want the paperback. And the cover I actually designed myself.
Oh wow, great. Yeah. And
So,
does the cover connect to the story? Or
it does, absolutely, yeah.
I love it when it does that.
The basis of the cover, because it's about an Irish family who emigrate to Australia, which my family did. So it is very inspired by some true events. And one of the things that we did was my father, for some reason, decided that Sydney was not the place for us, that the grass would be greener elsewhere, not Brisbane, not Melbourne, not Adelaide, but all the way over to Perth. Ooh. And he went out and bought a caravan, and this is the caravan.
Ah, right.
And we then travelled across the breadth of Australia in the caravan to Perth, and then subsequently out into the outback. So it is, so the caravan's on the road, and it is a kind of, in some respects, it's a bit of a road movie, I suppose. And it's a journey, both physical and kind of metaphorically as well.
Very interesting. So what genre are they marketing at? Is it more like a travelogue?
I'd say it's literary saga. So as I've kind of discovered, the saga genre has got various sort of avenues to it, and you know, there's one that's a very dominant one, which is kind of you know, East End girls kind of make good kind of thing, often set in the Second World War, etc. So yeah, I think this is kind of maybe a little bit more, you know, out of that sort of generic kind of
and it sounds so interesting as well, because for, you know, to go from Ireland to Australia and then across Australia as well, it's just like epic.
Yeah, well, the landscape's so epic, and I think that journey right across Australia and then out into the outback takes you on quite an epic journey. And there's quite a lot of different voices in the novel. There's the voices of the family, two of the parents, and predominantly two of the children. So you get, each chapter is a different perspective, a different voice, but the novel is also framed by an Indigenous Australian character.
Right.
And there are other voices that we hear throughout the novel, because the theme that kind of emerged for me was that the kind of the 10-pound poms and the emigrants like us weren't the only displaced people in Australia, that it was literally a landscape strewn with lost souls and displaced people, including one of the characters actually comes from Manchester and is was sent over at 10 years old, one of those orphans of empire that was sent out to institutional sort of farm schools, some of them were called. I think there was a brilliant film about that subject called Oranges and Sunshine, or Sunshine and Oranges. And, you know, I mean, the sad thing was that for many of those children, the mother wasn't actually dead.
Wow.
Yeah, but for whatever reason, they'd been placed in a Barnardo's or somewhere like that. And in the 50s, many of these children were sent off to, so that's another of my characters who's called Tom Pom. So he plays quite a significant part in the story in the outback.
Wonderful. I shall look forward to reading that one as well. So that's great. So what we'll do now, ladies, we will, unless there's any, by the way, members of the audience that are with us, feel free to ask questions at any time. Just give us a wave, and we will, and unmute yourself, and we'll bring you in. But what we'll do now is we'll start packing, ready for the island. So we'll first of all look at your 7 book choices. So Caroline, first of all, what's your first book going to be that you will take with you?
Right, well, I've actually chosen books because, oh right, thank you, Peter, who's showing the cover of the House of Hidden Secrets.
Yeah, the cover for House of Hidden Secrets.
Great, it was nice seeing that cover then, yeah.
We've got a flash, Peter Flash.
It's gone.
Well, what I've done is I've chosen books so I can show them. There might, I think it's an impossible thing, but so anyway, I've just chosen sort of slightly random things. The first one I've got here is Roald Dahl's Over to You, and what I wanted to choose was Roald Dahl's Switch Bitch, and I don't know if you've ever read them, any of them, but they were, do you remember Tales of the Unexpected?
Yeah, I love that.
Twisting the Tales. Well, they all started from Roald Dahl stories.
Showing your age now, Caroline.
Sorry?
You're showing your age now.
Yes, I heard of these when I was in the womb. And yeah, good hearing. And anyway, so this one was similar stories, and they're short stories with a twist in the tail, and these are when he was in the war. And there's another collection called Kiss Kiss, and they're all short stories with a twist in the tail. And that's where I started writing, because I did the short stories with a twist in the tail. And so I thank you to Roald Dahl for giving me the inspiration, and that's where my novel writing sort of went on from. So that's my first choice.
Great choice, love that one, and especially the story behind it as well. So Rosie, what is the first book that you'll be packing to take to the island?
Right, okay, so like this is going to sound like seriously pretentious. and actually I think because we don't get the Bible, I know we get Mike Craven's books.
We do, yeah.
but this is kind of my Bible, and it was given to me by my father when I was 12 years old, and you can see kind of just how battered and bruised and well used and life worn it is. And it is like a Bible because the pages are so thin, you know, they're just like, I don't know if you can see, they're just like paper thin. So it's actually very light. And then it's also got wonderful things in it, like little kind of pull-out maps and things. Okay, so now you're all intrigued, aren't you?
Yeah, very.
It's actually Tolstoy's War and Peace.
Wow.
And he gave this to me when I was 12, like I said, but hey, I was precocious, but not that precocious. So it took me till I was 14 to really pick it up and read it. And I could not put it down. I just seriously, fortunately, it because it's so light and quite small, it fit into my school satchel. So I literally was reading it all the time, to the point where I was caught at the back of the maths class with it under the desk. And little did I know, but Mrs. Griffin had come up behind me. And, you know, I think I would have been in a lot of trouble if it had been Agatha Christie or Catherine Cookson or something. But when she saw it was Tolstoy, she kind of let me off. Just, you know, said I would put it in the bag, you know, and I didn't get into trouble. So thanks to Tolstoy. But I think I was just, it was the first time I felt I really totally immersed in another world. And I thought, gosh, writers can do that.
Yeah.
They can totally take you to somewhere, you know, that you could not imagine ever going, you know. So it was a huge inspiration.
Yeah, that's great. And we've actually had a couple of other people choose that as that book as well. But unlike you, where you've read it, they've not read it, but have always wanted to. And they thought, well, what better time than to take it to the island?
See, I haven't read it since I was 14. So I'm kind of thinking, actually, you've made me think, I do want to read it again. Yeah. So there we go.
And as you say, something that can take you to, I'm reading a book at the moment that's set in Singapore in like 1939, but it really takes you there. It really, you know, it's a country I've never been to, but just reading the book transports you, because, you know, they go into the sights and smells and sounds and everything, and it, you know, and I can tell from you two as well, we were discussing something a couple of weeks ago in one of the chats about authors that you've never read the books of, but you know by speaking to them and the social media that you would enjoy their books. And I can tell that from both of you today. And I suppose that's the same, you know, with books that you pick as well. So great first choices. So now, Caroline, what's your second book going to be?
Well, I'm not doing them in any particular order here, but it's a bit predictable. Just about everybody chooses this, don't they? Jane Eyre, Charlotte Bronte. Ooh. But it's because I think for me, because I'm writing domestic noir, she was the queen of domestic noir, wasn't she? You know, it was such a brilliant story. I mean, you know, the mad wife in the attic, you know, it's so exciting, and that, you know, the cruelty in it and the love affair. Because with my books, I know I do kill people off and I do nasty things and the betray and all that sort of thing, but ultimately I think all my stories are basically love stories. Things go wrong in them, and this is a love story, isn't it? And you know, it's not obviously traditional love story, my stuff, but I just think it just has everything, you know. It's just yeah, so that's my number 2 choice, and it's actually neat.
Yeah.
So neat. But yes, that's my second choice.
Great choice, and I can see where you're coming from as well, where you know, you say about the love stories, and with that, it's a book that's written however long ago it was, but it doesn't age. And I think with the psychological thrillers that you write, although they're not romance books, and there is always a love element and a sort of relationship element that goes wrong. And that's probably, you know, linked to your writing, your psychological.
It's very much human emotions, isn't it? It's all those sort of I think because it's psychological thrillers, they are under the crime fiction umbrella, but it is more to do with relationships, isn't it? And you know, human frailties and all the rest of it. So, and I like that, you know, I really like that. And it's, you know, like you say, it's stood the test of time since 1847 or whatever it is.
That's
so
it.
yeah.
And you get to kill people off as well, so
Yeah,
you know,
no, it's great.
bonus. So that's a great choice. So Rosie, what's your second book going to be?
Okay, so my kind of favourite author is Rose Tremaine, and I mean, I love her contemporary novels, but mostly I absolutely love her historical novels, and I think that's just, you know, I just love history. So 2 of my degrees are in history, so you know, that's kind of, I guess, where that comes from. I mean, if there was a collected works of Rose Tremaine, I'd probably take that, but I really thought hard about this because it's so hard to choose between them. But my favourite character is Robert Merivale, who appears in 2 of her novels, unusually. So he's in Restoration, which they made a film of with Robert Downey Jr., I think it was. And then in the second appearance, he's in a novel called Merivale. And I love him because he's an absolute rogue, you know, and sometimes he does things that are really despicable.
Yeah.
But you know that there's kind of, you know, there's a heart there. And the person who really recognizes in a peculiar way that there is a heart there is actually the King, Charles II, because he comes into it every so often. But yeah, I mean, I just love the kind of emotional journey that Robert Merivale is taken on. So I'd really very happily read either of those novels again.
Yeah. Great, wonderful. They sound really interesting as well. So we'll now go on to look at your third book, Caroline. So what's that going to be?
Well, just the next one in the pile is The Great Gatsby.
Ooh.
But for this, it's not so much the story itself, because it's a bit thin, isn't it? You get through it a bit too fast.
Yeah.
But it's a bit like Rosie and your Bible from your dad. It's a bit nostalgic because this copy was actually my sister's before me. It's got her name in it, Rosemary England. And then it became mine, and I did it for A level. And then I've got 3 daughters, and all 3 did The Great Gatsby for A level. And they've all used this same book.
Great.
So it's like, you know, 5 women in the family, we've all done that.
Family heirloom.
It's classic, isn't it? So yeah.
Yeah,
great. But that's a story in itself, isn't it, Caroline?
Yeah. I know it's got all the annotations. It's got all the, you know, all these different things on all the different pages, that different, you know, writing of the family. And
that's
someone used a highlighter pen. Did I give permission for that?
Oh dear me, that's another controversial subject, isn't it? Highlighter pens in books. But yeah, that's definitely a family heirloom, so that's got to go, hasn't it? So Rosie, what's your book number 3?
Right, my book number 3 I don't have with me because I've kind of got a family book club, as it were, so books get passed around. But handily, Caroline has it to hand, because my 3rd book on the list is My Husband's Lies. Ooh, flash it up again, Caroline.
Who wrote that?
Yeah.
I only paid her tenner for this.
No, because I would love to read it again, but also because, you know, I feel like I sort of went on a bit of the journey as well, because myself and Caroline first met in a writers group, you know, which we absolutely love and which is a great group. So my first, actually literally the first time I met Caroline, she read an extract from the book, which didn't have that title at the time. And so I was immediately kind of intrigued. And then very kindly, she let me read a draft of the novel when, you know, before it went off to publishers, etc. So I feel a sort of an attachment to it, and I'd really like to take it away to the Montague Island.
Isn't that nice?
Everybody say, "Oh!"
I know, I told you she was nice and brilliant and everything, didn't I?
That's why you brought her along, Caroline.
Sorry?
Is that why you brought her along?
Of course, yeah, like I say, no, that's lovely, lovely surprise. Thanks, Rosie.
That was lovely, that, yeah. So what's book number 4, Caroline, for you?
Well, the next one on my pile is again a bit nostalgic, really, because I studied this at school, Thomas Hardy's Far from the Madding Crowd.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's a great read, and I loved all the sort of, the farmers with their funny names and everything, and I loved the love story. And but Bathsheba, I mean, she was a feminist, wasn't she? She was going to be nobody's property. She was, and you just think this was what, 1874 or something.
Yeah.
And and that she was such a strong person. I mean, obviously it went a bit pear-shaped, didn't it, for her? But also I just love the hook of the novel with Boldwood, that as a joke they send him a Valentine's card, don't they? And he had no interest, but that's what pulled him in. So I think that's a little bit of a psychological thriller as well, because I think that's such a brilliant hook, to have in anything, because that's what, why he fell in love with it, isn't it? And all that sort of thing. So, and then obviously it was, it's dramatic, what happens with Troy and everything. So I think it's an all-round very good read.
Yeah, multi-genre, isn't it, really? It sort of suits all tastes.
Yeah.
So that's great. And what's yours going to be, Rosie? Your book number 4.
Right. Well, first thing I want to say is that I think I'm going to have a great time on the island, because these are none of these books that Caroline's chosen, I have chosen, but I would love to read all of them again or for the first time. My where are we up to? 4th choice is a biography, actually, and it's by Fintan O'Toole, and it's called The Traitors Kiss, and it's a biography of Richard Brinsley Sheridan. And people who know me will know I'm obsessed with Richard Brinsley Sheridan, who was an Irish playwright and politician, and just like a really colourful, interesting guy. So interesting for me that I've begun to develop a series of historical crime novels featuring him as the protagonist.
Right.
So I've written first drafts of 3 novels so far. And if a publisher will pick them up, please, I would quite happily write a Sheridan mystery for the rest of my life. So I'd need to take this with me just to make sure I kept on the even keel of historical accuracy, at least in terms of Sheridan's kind of life events. So
great.
Yeah,
well, publishers, if you're out there, because I know some of them watch, so if you're out there, get on to Rosie.
And I can say, because again, Rosie's read a lot of it in our writers group, and excellent, brilliant. We've all agreed. We've got some writers of members of our group here, and everyone's nodding. So
right. So we will keep an eye on in the future, Rosie, for those being released, and we will say, well, where you heard that first.
Yes, yeah.
So that's great. So now on to book number 5. What's your book number 5, Caroline?
Well, just again, next on the pile is Kate Atkinson's Case Histories.
Right.
I was so thrilled because I love all Kate Atkinson's books, and obviously the contemporary literary sort of book sort of thing. So I love the fact that a lauded literary writer turned to crime, because some people think that crime can't be literary. And she, Jackson Brodie, he's such a brilliant, world-weary character, great stories, and I gobbled them up, so I was thrilled. And it was sort of an ambition of mine to write a bit like, nothing like Kate, obviously, she's brilliant, but, if I could emulate her, and that's what I've tried to do. And also, the TV series was great as well, and Jason Isaacs as Jackson Brodie was just brilliant. So maybe Jason would want to come with us on the island, just if he's free.
If he's available, yeah. So it gave you quite a bit of inspiration then in your own writing, that from what you say.
Yeah, it did, because again, it's that it's still contemporary in crime. She's got that genre blend, even though obviously it's classed as crime. But again, I know he's a private detective, isn't he? And but it's all, again, it's about relationships and people again, and all that sort of thing. So I think it's, again, that and it did inspire my writing. So
Great, wonderful. That's great. So now on to Rosie. What's your next choice?
Right, I don't have it with me because it's actually out there in the family book club. But it's a writer I've just sort of discovered in the last couple of years. And it sort of reflects the Australian connection in my life, because actually one of my family, even though we returned from our emigration experience, one of my family went back and has lived in Australia for 30 years. So I do, and a nephew lives there now as well. So I feel that strong Australian connection. So it's a crime writer called Jane Harper. And Caroline, I know, has met her. Oh, I was so jealous. But and interviewed her.
Yes, she's such a lovely person as well.
Yeah. Oh, she seems to be such a lovely person. And I really enjoyed The Dry, which has been a huge bestseller. But actually, my favourite of the novels is one called The Lost Man, which, oh, see, Caroline's looking, she might even have it on the shelf.
Caroline's on the bookshelf.
Yeah, it is really set out in the far, far outback, what they call in Australia the back of Burke. Yeah. And, you know, so it would be a reminder of that side of Australia. Fantastic. Right. Thank you, Caroline.
Yeah. Well done, Caroline.
And just my relief that we actually didn't go that far out, because it's literally, it's like days to the nearest shop or something. Wow. I mean, you can, yeah, what it really captures is that isolation and the searing heat, because it's not really giving anything away, but there's a death right at the beginning, and the guy has died literally in the beside some kind of marker, kind of in the desert, as it were, and you can see where he's crawled around the shadow to try and live as long as he could, but without water, without shelter, without shade.
Awful way to die, that, isn't it?
Oh, it's horrendous, horrendous. But that's the opening of the book. I mean, what an amazing opening.
I agree with you as well. I thought I like The Dry and her other ones, but this standalone, I think it's really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
fantastic.
when you think that you're in the outback, even if, you know, there's no chance of somebody like passing by, is there? You know, it's just like,
yeah.
Oh, you know, it's like crazy to think, awful way to die, that. But sounds like a brilliant book. So what are we on now? We're on book number 6 now, I think. So what's your next one in the pile, Caroline?
Right, this is me being a little bit pretentious now. Middlemarch, only because, yeah, it's another one you can borrow, Rosie.
Yeah.
Only because when I finally read it, I was so proud of myself, because it's such a big tome, isn't it? But actually, it's a brilliant story as well, because I just sort of thought, oh, because when I look at the print as well, it's tiny print. I don't know how many words it is. But so it's George Eliot's Middlemarch, and you know, it's again it's about people, isn't it? And you know, relationships and some crime and all sorts again. And so it's again fascinating, and it would keep me busy for quite a while. And I'd like to reread it actually.
Yeah, it's good to reread, particularly such a big book, and you think, well, I would love to read it, but just getting the time. But if you're away on an island off the coast, then that's a time to read something like that.
Absolutely.
So great. So Rosie, what's your book number 6?
Right. Well, I've gone for a massive whopper as well. So, Caroline, we'll have sort of like years of reading ahead of us.
It's one thing, ladies, it'll be handy to use for weapons.
That's true. And this is pretty heavy, actually. But yeah, this is The Irish RM by Somerville and Ross. And they're basically, I think there's about 34 stories in it, but it's all the same kind of main characters, but it's kind of little episodes. So you could dip in and out of it, but you could dip in and out, but be going back to the same wonderful characters. And it is laugh out loud funny. Okay. You know, so yeah, I'd just be chuckling all the time sort of reading this. And I mean, this is showing my age. Many years ago, they actually did a series on television with don't know if you can see him there, with Peter Bowles playing the Irish RM, who's an Englishman who's been sent to Ireland as the RM is a resident magistrate. And of course, what he encounters is the kind of, all the kind of, devilment and mischief and japes of the Irish. It's set in West Cork as well. So, I mean, I just totally loved that part of Ireland. And that's where I first discovered it, really, because Somerville and Ross, who were cousins, wrote together, and they lived in a tiny little village called Castle Townsend, down from Skibbereen on the coast, and they were kind of what they call the Anglo-Irish gentry. And the thing that was kind of quite interesting, because sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, is that when Ross died, Somerville insisted on continuing to write the books with both their names on them.
Wow.
Because she insisted that Ross was still writing with her.
Oh.
And there was a medium in this tiny village, and she regularly went to seances and kept in touch with Ross.
Wow.
So there's a sort of slightly, kind of weird element to that writing partnership. Anyway, but that's
I can see what you mean now as well. The stories within a story.
Absolutely. Yeah. So great fun.
Brilliant. Yeah, and nice to have a bit of humour in there as well. So that's
laugh out loud.
Yeah. So we're on to the final book now. So what's bottom of the pile, Caroline?
Well, this one is called Wolf Comes to Town by Dennis Manton, and I don't know where we even got it from, but it was the book that my three girls wanted us to read time and time and time again. And it appealed to them, and it appeals to me because it's about a bad wolf, and he starts off, he puts disguises on so you think it's a human being, and the girls had to spot where the wolf was, and you think, is that the wolf, but the wolf gets away with it at the end, and he goes around town stealing things and all that, and in the end he steals a little boy called Bernard.
Wow.
He steals people's food, and then the guitar and things, and then a cat, and then eventually he steals Bernard, an obnoxious little boy called Bernard, and he gets away with it, and the girl loved it, the fact that because isn't it funny how it's not was a happy ending for the wolf but not for Bernard. And so I rather like the dark. It's me liking dark humour, and so that was my final choice. And to think of my lovely girls as well.
And it's something totally different as well, which is even better. So I like that. And Rosie, what's your final book going to be?
Right. Well, first I have to say I can't wait to read it, Caroline. I'm jumping at the bit. Okay, so my final choice again is a little bit nostalgic and a little bit sentimental, because it's a book given to me by my grandmother, who I absolutely adored. And she gave me this book of poetry, the poems of W.B. Yeats, with the injunction to learn one of the poems, her favourite poem. And I think at one point I kind of had learnt it, but I've forgotten it. So one of the things I really have to do on the island is to learn this poem finally, once and for all. And if you don't mind, I'll just read a couple of lines from the beginning of it, because also I think it will be quite inspirational for the island. It's called The Lake Isle of Innisfree. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there, of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee loud glade.
Wonderful.
Except I won't be alone, because I'll have Caroline.
No, great.
I thought we could have the 9 bean rows, and maybe we might be able to induce a few bees into a hive. And
but
it's a fabulous poem about somebody seeking to live on an island in a, you know,
self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Right, that was an ideal poem to go along with. So great book choices there, and really interesting and diverse. So really good to hear all the different stories about your selections. So now we've got some. We've looked at the book, so now we've got some other bits and pieces to look at. So we believe that on this remote Cumbrian island, there is 1 hour of electricity a day.
Oh.
All you get is 1 hour a day. So you've got to be careful. So you can take along some music to play. So we say, pick a CD that you would like to take with you. So Caroline, what CD would you take with you?
Well, I do, whatever it is, it's a difficult one, isn't it? But it would have to be one I can sing along to, because, you know, you do have to, and there are so many to sing along to. But I'm a great Oasis fan, and in The House of Hidden Secrets, a character in it called Hugh loves Oasis, and in particular he likes Definitely Maybe. So I think I'll go for this.
Yeah.
It's topical at the moment. And yeah, so for Hugh.
And
Hugh,
definitely maybe you might get rescued from the island. So yeah, nice choice. And Rosie, what's your CD going to be?
Oh, this was very hard as well, just having one. But I thought if we've just got electricity for 1 hour, I suspect it might be kind of like just going into evening when we feel like having that burst of electricity at the end of a hard-working day, tending to our bean rows and making our clay and wattle cabin or whatever else we're doing.
Yeah.
So I'd like to kind of relax to Nina Simone. And so what I've got here is Nina Simone's Finest Hour, and that would just chill me out completely. So yeah, that's what I'd be listening to.
Good choice, nice album, love that one. Now you also get to take along a DVD. Now obviously this is a difficult one because you only get an hour of electricity, so you've got to decide which one you're going to watch, and then you might not be able to watch it all in one day. Now obviously as a DVD, it could be a film, it could be a TV series, it could be a concert, or you know, whatever on DVD. So Caroline, what have you chosen as your DVD to take with you?
I've decided I would like to take the box set of Being Human. I have to say that slowly because people think you're saying Being Q. No, Being Human. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It was just brilliant, the TV show. I thought it was so brilliantly written, brilliantly acted. It's the one where we've got a vampire, a ghost and a werewolf who live in a house together. But it's an allegory, and it's a big metaphor about life and problems and friendship and temptation, and it was just brilliant. I just loved it. I could watch that again and again. And the main stars, sort of Russell Tovey and Aidan Turner, they did eventually leave, but even the new people that came in, there was Jason Watkins in there, and loads of other, Robson Green was in it as a werewolf, and it was just so excellent. But it was the layers. And I'm not really into fantasy, but I just thought it was just brilliant. And so I could have, you know, there's about 5 or 6 series, so I could watch a little bit each time from the
Exactly, good, yeah, good one, good choice. And Rosie, what's your DVD going to be?
Well, I'll have to get the DVD because I've actually got the video. But I'm sure there is a DVD of it because it's now a complete cult classic. It's a film from 1971, and for me, it's one of the most wonderful feel-good films, and the most brilliant central performance. It's Harold and Maude, and the other bonus is that it's got the most incredible soundtrack of Cat Stevens. So it wouldn't matter if we could only listen to an hour of it, because you could almost close your eyes and just listen to the music some nights, you know, because the soundtrack more or less kind of runs through most of it, and some great songs, fantastic songs. But I don't know if you can see them, Harold and Maude, but they become lovers, and Harold proposes to Maude, much to the horror of his family, etc. But you totally believe it. you know, that this 19, 20-year-old who is kind of obsessed with death, they meet at a funeral, falls in love with this 79-year-old.
Wow.
Who completely and utterly loves life and is life-giving and life-affirming. And she rescues him, basically. She saves him from himself. And I won't give too many spoilers away in case you haven't seen it. But it's just a fantastic love story with a central performance from Ruth Gordon, which is, you know, kind of breathtaking, I think. Anyway, so that's my choice.
Wonderful. Now, I've got to ask you the question, but have you still got the video player?
I have, actually, because I've still got a couple of old videos that I would just die to part from. So it's meant I've had to keep a video player so I can every so often.
Well done, that alone. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So next we come to an interesting choice. We're now looking at food. So it can be a meal or a favourite food, or maybe just bean sprouts to take with you. So Caroline, what's your favourite food going to be?
Well, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because food's so nice. But
yeah,
I think if I had to choose one thing, that my daughters, if you ask them, what would mum say? They go, nuts. And I'm a bit of a nut. I love nuts. I'm constantly eating nuts. And at the moment, macadamia are my favourites. And, you know, sometimes it's, you know, but yeah. And so I just graze on nuts the whole time. So, and then I wouldn't have to worry about cooking, would I? Because, yeah.
So a selection of nuts.
Yes, please. If I could have, the range, because I do go through phases. I like one and then I like another, and honey roast cashews are rather nice as well.
A nut hamper, shall we say?
Yes, please.
Interesting, great. And Rosie, what's your food going to be?
Oh, this was really hard for me as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I sort of have a favourite meal, but then I thought, what is the one food I would miss, like seriously miss? And whenever I've been like over to Italy or around Europe, the one thing I have to have as soon as I get back is a good curry. So Indian or Thai, but maybe just the edge might be Indian. But with the full works, you know, I'd have to have, you know, the naan bread and the pickles and, you know, the raita and kind of like all of that, you know. So
choice,
but I think I don't think I could envisage surviving without a decent curry once every so often.
Yeah, you're not the first one to have chosen that. We've had other people choose curries as well. So that's great, wonderful. So lots of food for you to be going on with. So now we come to the last item, which tends to be quite interesting at times on what people choose for the luxury item. Because I've not put any boundaries on it, I've just said a luxury item. And we've had choices from face cream to a pillow to all kinds of strange things. So Caroline, what is your luxury item going to be?
Sorry, someone was coming up on my computer. Well, I found this really difficult. Presumably, you're not allowed a mobile phone. That's so predictable and boring. But
it's a luxury item. I've not put any.
Well, it does every. You know, this modern fangled thing called a mobile phone. It's quite good, isn't it? You know, I could FaceTime my girls, and you know, you can do all, and you're on the internet, and you can read, and you can have your Kindle on it, and you can, you know. So I know it's really deadly boring, but you know, I know it's terrible. I did think of other things like a pillow and all sorts of things, but I couldn't know. I really couldn't think of, or a Marmite maybe, because you've always got to have Marmite wherever you go. If I can't have my mobile phone, I have a jar of Marmite.
Well, controversial on both aspects, because you take your mobile phone, but how are you going to charge it up?
The 1 hour of electricity.
Yeah, I'll find a wire somewhere.
And Marmite. Are you a big Marmite fan?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I was thinking, I mean, obviously we're off the Cumbrian coast, aren't we here? But if you were going, you know, to tropical island. And I could eat grasshoppers and things if I had Marmite. You can eat anything with Marmite. So maybe I'll go for the Marmite then.
Interesting on whichever one you decide, yeah. And Rosie, what's your luxury item going to be?
Right, well, there were quite a few ideas I had, but in the end, they felt like, they're not luxury. They're more sort of practical, like things like a lighter, because I think, you know, aside from having to make sure I bring along some thermals, underwear and stuff, you know, because I cannot bear to be cold. I'd need to be able to have a fire. So, you know, so a lighter, but I'm going to count that as not a luxury. That is like a necessity.
Essential.
Yeah. So then I thought, well, my luxury, the thing I'd like to look forward to at the end of a hard working day on the island, and to listen to Nina Simone, or kind of watch Harold and Maude, or Being Human or whatever, would be to lie in a hot tub. Yeah, and sing along. Well, the great thing about the Cat Stevens, they really sing along, Caroline, you know, so at the top, and I can't sing, so on an island, I could just sing at the top of my voice to, you know,
Caroline, just changed her mind. She's taking some headphones.
So yeah.
Great, wonderful, great answers there. Well, thank you both ladies for going through all of your choices. Really very interesting to hear all the differences. So now I'm just going to see if there is anyone in the audience that has any questions about the books that you've discussed, or you know, the books you publish yourself. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to ask anything? If you just unmute yourself.
No,
yeah, they're all like, oh, internet's gone down. But that's great anyway. But I hope you've all enjoyed listening in. So just before we disappear and leave you on your journey to the island, all wrapped up in your thermals and all your layers, which you'll need, even though we've had a nice day in Cumbria today. What I want to just finally to do is, Caroline, can you just give us a brief overview again of your books? One thing I forgot to mention earlier as well, or I meant to ask you earlier, I know you sort of said some are available in ebook and some are in paperback. Do you do any audiobooks?
Yes, so my Beneath the Skin is available in an audiobook. My Husband's Lies is available in audiobook, and Betray Her is as well. And then the one that's just come out, The House of Hidden Secrets, that's available in audiobook as well. But the one that isn't yet, Truth Games isn't yet, and the two legal ones aren't in audiobook. Which is a shame, because I love listening. I've been listening to, going back to My Husband's Lies, I've been going on walks and listening to it, and that's it feels a bit wrong listening to your own thing, but it's because it's how the narrator interprets it. And he's done, it's a chap who was in Mad Men. He's an English bloke, but he's done it brilliantly. He's done it so well. So yes, that's the answer to that.
And it makes me laugh when you keep mentioning about My Husband's Lies. How does your husband feel about it?
Oh, he's like, oh yes, you know, this is about me, ha ha. And no, he thinks he's in all the books, and he isn't. But he's never read them, so.
Oh well, just keep telling him he is, yeah. Remember,
yeah, that's it.
One day he might read them, yeah. So just remind everybody where they can contact you on social media, and your website, and where they can get your books.
Yes, so my books are available. Well, you can get them through obviously bookstores such as Waterstones, etc. You can get them on Amazon. The downloads are available on Kobo and Amazon and Apple. So just through all the usual places. If you go on Amazon and put in Caroline England, it comes up with all my books. So the Caroline ones, the C.E. Rose ones, and you see all the pretty covers. And my website is carolineenglandauthor.co.uk. Facebook, do a search, Caroline England Author, I'm on there. Twitter, at Kaz England, and on Instagram at Kaz England 1.
Brilliant. But you do well remembering all that without even referring to.
People will be going, oh, well, what's that? Basically, if you put an internet search of Caroline England, there's a singer from Liverpool called Caroline England, and so you'll either find her or me. If you put
I will tag you both. The video will go out tomorrow on YouTube and on social media, so I will tag you both so people can click on that and find it that way. So Rosie, just remind everyone again about your book and where they can get it.
Well, I'll keep it simple as well. The book is actually written under the name of Rose M. Cullen. So if you just Google The Lucky Country, Rose M. Cullen, you'll find the various outlets, whether it's ebook or paperback. And then just to keep things simple, because I can't remember everything like Caroline does, I have got a Facebook author page, and that's Rosie Writer Author, and that has got the details of a website, but it's a bit of a crap website because I've sort of done it myself, and it's, you know, it's kind of like, it's very amateur. When I, you know, maybe when I become, you know, more professional someday, I'll get somebody else to do it. But so there is a website and there is an Instagram as well, but the links are on the Facebook page. So maybe I'll just, whoever gets to the Facebook page can find the rest.
Brilliant, that's great. Well, thank you both ladies for a brilliant evening. Just to let you know, we've got a few guests coming up. Next week, we've got Anita Kirk, and then we've got a couple of changes on days in the weeks after that. Then we've got Caroline Green, Jim Odie, Jonathan Mayhew, who writes with J.E. Mayhew, Malcolm Hollindrake, Essie Moorhead, Adam Lofthouse, Alex Kane, and lots more coming along throughout the year. And you can find links to all of our book groups, including one that will be interesting to any of Caroline's readers, the UK Psychological Thriller Club. You'll find that, a link to that, and all the other book clubs that I run on the YouTube page when that gets posted. So thank you very much to everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you, Joe.
And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.